Hey everyone, welcome back to the Monday Movie Club. This week we're going to be talking about one of my favorite movies of all time, Stand By Me. And here to talk with me about it, calling from across the country, is a wonderful actor and a good friend of mine, Alex Kattan. Alex, thank you for coming.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm so excited. Stand By
Of course.
Me is one of my favorite movies ever, and I love talking about it. So this could be like a 2 hour long video.
I I have ended up with recordings that have been near that length. However, I do my best to keep it down until the day comes where I do a Harry Potter video, and then I'll release
That's
like
great,
a
and I would like
4 hour
to
cut.
be a part of that.
Sure. Yeah, I
Um,
can get like a group together of like Harry Potter fans and make it like a special event. Um, I just like to open up by asking everybody like just how they're doing. When this started, it was, how are you doing because of quarantine? But now it's quarantine at all. How are you doing with everything?
um, I'm doing all right. I'm, trapped in my childhood home with my family, but it's all right. That's why they invented alcohol. So
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
good. We're all good. How are you?
I get I'm good. Same thing. Childhood home on Long Island. I've been learning how to make mixed drinks to pass the time, both in the making and the drinking. But things are the way they are. We try to make the world a little bit better, and it gets worse. But we try. um, so I also like to, before we jump into Stand By Me specifically, I like to ask my guests the same few questions as you probably know by now. The first question I like to ask people is, what's the first movie you remember seeing in theaters?
Kind of embarrassing. Um, so the first movie I remember seeing in theaters was like a Muppet movie, and it was like 3D. And I was a child and did not understand 3D, so I was terrified. There were like puppets like coming at me, and I'm terrified of dolls, so this was not a good choice on my mother's part.
Do you
And
know which Muppets movie?
no idea. It was so traumatic. I just like have this image in my head of these like puppets, and I'm screaming, and my mom ended up having to take me home.
Oof, that's that's no fun. Um, I wonder if I can count this because I've sort of started to keep a head count um, of whose first movie was a sequel.
Mm,
Because for some reason, and I think I can count Muppets because it's a series of movies.
yeah, probably.
Because I think so far we've had two people not say sequels. Justin and Daniel didn't see sequels, but everybody else, their first movie was a sequel, including myself. Um,
What was yours?
Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. That's the first one I remember seeing, though
Yes.
the first one that I know that I saw was Toy Story 2. So both sequels.
Also, too.
Um, yeah. The other question I like to ask people is there a movie from your childhood that stands above the rest as like leaving a large impact on you or your taste in movies? Obviously, Muppets sort of scarred you a bit, but like a positive impact on you.
Um, I loved E.T. It was like my favorite movie as a kid, and I'd
Mm.
watch it over and over and over. You know how kids they like a movie and they watch it 20 times, unless that was just me and I'm mentally ill somehow. I mean,
Well, you say you know how a kid likes the movie and watches it like 20 times, but I still do that.
I do
So,
too. And like people don't understand. So we'll be hanging out and they'll be like, "Oh, let's watch a movie. What movie do you want to see?" And I'm like, "Oh, this movie's the best. Let's watch it." And they're like, "We've already seen it." And I'm like, "So?"
but we know that it's good. So let's
Exactly.
watch it
I don't
again.
want to waste our time.
Yeah. I can't tell you how many times I've seen Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. I mean, I can like recite that entire movie at this point. um, so more on the topic of Stand By Me. This, as I mentioned earlier, is one of my favorite movies. Although I think by this point, people might be thinking like every other week I say, this is one of my favorite movies, but they've all genuinely been like in my top 100 movies. So what can I say?
And when you
You
make
said,
a lot of movies, you have to have a lot of favorites.
yeah, and that's why my list is there's 100 movies, and people, like Stand By Me, they like Lady Bird. You said it's one of your favorite movies. Why did you pick Stand By Me in particular?
Um, I loved it growing up, and I still love it, and I watch it like once every couple years or so, if I'm being honest. um, I find that, like, especially growing up, I really loved these coming of age movies with like a group of kids who are bonded together by some event. Um, I don't know why. I just feel like the friendship in this movie is so complex and adorable and strong, and I don't know.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. And one of the great things I think about a lot of those coming of age movies, especially ones that were made in like the 80s, like Goonies and Stand By Me.
Love Goonies.
Yeah, Goonies is great. Um, but they treat the characters, they simultaneously represent the age while, they're arguing about who would win in a fight, Superman or Mighty Mouse, or
Yes.
what is Goofy. But they, at the same time, give them a level of maturity that a lot of other movies don't give kids.
Hmm.
And so, as a kid watching it, you're kind of like, yay, they're treating us like equals.
Yeah, they're 12 and they're smoking cigarettes.
Yeah, that might be more of a 50s thing.
Yeah.
Do you remember the first time you saw this movie? I know for me, it was at like a fairly young age. Probably one of the first R-rated movies I saw, because in terms of R-rated movies, it's pretty tame other than the language, especially for a movie where they're going to look at a dead body.
Yes. Yeah, I was fairly young too. And I just mostly remember having a huge crush on River Phoenix.
Oh, of course.
Still do, rest in peace. Um, yeah, and I loved his character, and I especially loved how he kind of became the father that they all needed.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I thought that that was like so sweet, and the whole town expects him to be like this terrible kid, but he's really a good person, and he's just trying his best with what life handed to him.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah. Uh, River Phoenix is awesome. Honestly, they're all awesome in this movie,
Yeah.
especially for child actors.
Oh yeah.
Um, that's one of the things that I think is, like, honestly, one of the best parts of this movie, other than just thinking like, oh, the acting is good. But I really think that, at least in my opinion, that comes down a lot to the directing of it, because handling child actors is not an easy task. Um, but Rob Reiner manages to get like amazing performances out of each of these kids in the movie. I honestly think that Rob Reiner deserves to be brought up more when people talk about the greatest directors of all time, because you have Stand By Me, Princess Bride, When Harry Met Sally, A Few Good Men, This Is Spinal Tap. The list goes on. Um, why do you think it is that like Rob Reiner's name isn't brought up more when like greatest directors are mentioned?
That's a good question. I don't know. I guess like you're just so, because it's so well directed, you don't really think about the direction. You know,
Yeah,
when you watch the movie, you're just like in it, and it's so good, and you're like, wow, these actors are amazing. The cinematography is amazing, and like you kind of forget that it's like, a movie that, there's a
yeah,
director involved telling people what to do and how to do it. I don't know. I think that would be my guess.
yeah. Especially because, I mean, like kind of similar to that, his movies are all very different.
Yes.
Like he's so good at doing whatever that movie requires of him, that unlike Spielberg, where like his early works you could like tell was him, or
Yeah.
Tarantino, you're like, yeah, that's him. Nolan, yeah, that's him. You kind of forget that he directed these movies,
Yeah.
um, which we shouldn't. We should pay him more respect for the great things he's given us.
He is
Um,
going to love this video.
yes, Rob Reiner, if you're watching, we love you. Okay, I have a fun game for you. I did this a few weeks back when I had Justin on. At the time of recording, Justin's video hasn't been posted yet, so this will probably be new to you. If this movie were to be remade today, okay? And I don't want them to remake the movie. I'm just saying if they remade the movie today, who would you cast as the main four kids? And let's set the movie in the 90s as opposed to the 50s so that there's still that 30-year like backwards in time thing.
Oh God, that is so hard because I don't feel like there are many child actors right now that are as good as they were.
There's like the Stranger Things kids
Yeah.
and the It kids.
Yeah. And I mean, actually, yeah, because they could fit with the Stephen King vibe.
Yeah.
But,
And I think if you were to set the movie in the 90s, you'd also have more freedom to be diverse in terms of gender and race.
yeah.
Just because, like in the 50s, if like when Stephen King set things in the 50s and they had like a black friend, that was a main focus of the story.
Yeah.
Um, and I think if you set it in the 90s, you'd be able to set it with a little less of that going on.
Yeah. Watching this movie like more as an adult, um, you kind of pick up on like, oh, everyone's white. That's
Every,
interesting.
everyone's white and only two women appear on screen.
Exactly. They have like no, they're the useless chick, to
Yeah.
quote Always Sunny.
There was the lady who's like, hey, who's doing pop rockets, like a one line, and then the mom.
And
uh
like didn't really say anything except for like in a little flashback.
yeah, the dinner table flashback is
Yeah.
when she talked. Other than that, she was silent the whole time. Another thing that this movie does really well is each of the four characters brings a entirely different perspective to the journey.
Mm-hmm.
Gordy is obviously there to get some resolution that he feels he didn't get for his brother.
Yeah.
um Chris is going on it to sort of get away and prove himself. Vern doesn't really want to be there.
Yeah.
uh, and then Mouth, as I will always call him, even though that's his Goonies name, uh, it just seems to be there because he's a little unhinged.
A little.
A little unhinged.
Yeah.
Especially, I mean, we find out in like the stuff where we flash forward to the future that his life probably ends up the worst of the four.
Yeah.
Um, sure, Chris bites it, but
Yeah.
he had an okay life before he
Had a
did.
good life before he was brutally murdered.
Yes, he ended up being a lawyer. You
Mm-hmm.
know, Vern, standard.
Yeah.
Forklift.
Forklift. Yep.
Gordy, big house, big family, famous writer.
I love how like in the end we see him as a dad and like a good dad, whereas his father uh didn't pay attention to him, and growing up he like at the end he says like my dad hates me.
Yeah,
um and so I think it's cool to see that that didn't get passed on through him.
yeah, yeah. Chris manages to break his cycle and he becomes a good person, but then he still eats a foul. And uh, what is his name? It's not Mouth. I
Teddy.
literally just what?
Teddy.
Teddy. I literally just watched it last night, and I still just I think of him as because they're the same character.
That's true.
They're essentially the same person. Just one has a burnt ear. Um, but yeah, Teddy Teddy is unable to break his own cycle, which is sad.
Yeah. I find it so like interesting that even though his father abuses him and like almost killed him, he loves him and idolizes him as this like great war hero.
Yeah. Yeah, and they even, they pointed out in Gordy's voiceover at one point. He's like, it's crazy that, he loves him when, he almost killed him, and my father hasn't laid a hand on me since I was 3, and that was for drinking, bleach.
Which is very
And
relevant today.
yeah, but I think the movie tries to deal with some of those, you know, heavy those heavy themes of childhood trauma where people can be really attached to people who are negative towards them,
Hmm.
and you know
Yeah, I
a
mean, they,
lack of attention is also a form of like
yeah, they've
trauma.
all experienced some form of abuse or neglect in their families, and just all in different ways, and they all turned out very differently
Yeah,
from each other.
although I don't know if Vern has any real trauma. I mean, his brother is kind of a jerk, but
Yeah, I think they mentioned like because in the beginning I feel like they're like, oh yeah, his parents are alcoholics, his parents beat him, his parents do this. I don't know.
yeah, it's probably not like jumping out immediately because all of the other kids um get a moment of like catharsis in their journey, and Vern doesn't. He doesn't have the monologue where you cry. The other 3 all had their cry monologue.
So unaware of it,
Yeah,
but I love.
yeah. He's completely like kind of useless on the journey. He even runs away at the end. Like the other 3 kind of like stand their ground, but
Yeah,
Vern dips.
I know.
Yeah, the 3 things for me that I think make the movie like exceptionally great are the cast, first of all, and not just the 4 kids. John Cusack as the older brother, Kiefer Sutherland as the bad guy. Um, Even the parents do a really good job in this movie. Another thing is the music. The music is incredible, like a great soundtrack all the way through. Um, Hits of the 50s. And then this amazing blend of like comedy and drama, you know.
Yeah, because sometimes it's you kind of forget that it's a Stephen King movie.
Yeah,
Then there's still darkness that creeps out, and the whole time while like the story is about this journey that they go on, um, but you kind of forget that the reason they're on this journey is to see a dead child. And so it's you're watching the movie, all this stuff happens, funny, oh sad, and then I don't know. I
yeah,
feel like then Stephen King's like, surprise, it's still my movie.
yeah. I mean, I think the one thing that is like always there, that is like a core Stephen King thing of these like coming of age stories, is the over the top bullies. These
Yes.
bullies who, from the moment you meet them, are threatening to stick a cigar in your eye, pulls a knife out, uh, just like these crazy over the top evil bullies.
Yeah. And I mean, at the end, he pulls out a knife to like, is he gonna kill these children?
He was
Yeah.
fully about to murder a child.
Yeah. And I think that in the like first time that we see Ace, he steals Gordy's hat that his brother gave him that was like a
Yeah,
symbol of his love. And then instead of giving it back, hurts Chris. And I think that shows like his lack of respect for life and, the dead brother. And so I feel like that kind of justifies the ending.
yeah. I mean, there's even that great scene when he's drag racing his friends, and you just see that somebody like him who wants to win at any cost, does not care about the consequences around him. That truck driver probably got seriously injured, definitely is set back on whatever delivery he was doing with those logs. Like that was just flat destruction for no other reason than to prove a point that he will win. And
Yeah,
that
and
guy wasn't even involved in it.
I know, and I love that after like this whole chaos happens, he's like, "Oh, no one."
Yeah. Kiefer Sutherland is phenomenal in this movie. Uh, the way that he's able to portray this like sociopathic level bully who he never raises his voice once. He never seems to really show true anger. Even when he's about to kill a child, he's just like, all right, I'll kill you. Well, Alex, thank you so much for joining us today. This was lovely. I loved revisiting this movie and talking about it with you. Do you have anything that you want to plug to the audience at home?
Yes. Even though it's quarantine, I'm still busy working. And a film I'm helping get made will be filming at the end of June. It's called 5150, and it's written and directed by Denzel Whitaker, starring Giovanna Depo. And it's, I think, a very important film, especially right now. It's about the mental health of the famous, like the Black celebrity community. And I'm really excited about it. So you should support us and watch it when it comes out.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Alex.
Thank you.
And thank you to everyone at home who is watching. Be sure to like and subscribe to the video below. And let us know down in the comments what you thought of the movie. And also let me know what is your favorite 80s movie. Personally, for me, it's like a tight race between Empire Strikes Back and Back to the Future. Alex, do you have a favorite 80s movie?
Oh, Back to the Future. That's a good one.
Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Be sure to join us next Monday when we'll be talking about Zombieland,
Ooh.
a fun romp and a good old spoof horror movie. Uh, Thanks so much, everyone. Bye.
Bye.